What's going on, guys? Ben from JK Gear and Gadgets, and as you can tell, it is a nasty, yucky day out. But my day just got a lot better because I just put the new 7-slot Customs Pritchett Canyon Series frame chop bumper on my Jeep, and I love how it looks. It really cleaned up the front end of the Jeep. I was able to recess the winch to allow better airflow, and honestly, I really like the way it looks. It's smaller, it's lighter. Overall, I think this might be one of the best bumpers available on the market, and you'll see why in this video. This video might seem like it's extremely long, but there's a lot of different options you can do with this bumper. It's not cut and dry. You can mess with it and you can make it suit your needs. So let me go ahead and grab the camera. We'll do a walk around of the bumper. I'll talk about the features of it, and then later on in the video, we'll dive into the videos of me installing it and giving you some tips and tricks. Alright, so I'll start off with everybody's favorite question. How much does it cost? $410 for everything you see here. That's an incredible price for a bumper that's made in the USA, extremely heavy duty, and it comes with everything you need. Except for those of you that are running the 2012s and up, you will need to get a evap relocation bracket, because the evap is right there. But mine's a 2010, I didn't have that issue, and those relocation brackets aren't expensive at all. But as you can tell, this is an awesome looking bumper. Since it was a frame chop, it does stick closer to the body than a traditional bolt-on bumper would. If you're not familiar with what a frame chop is, it's very simple. The standard bumpers mount to a frame horn that sticks out to about here with 4 bolts. The frame chop, you're going to cut the frame back to allow the bumper to sit a lot closer, and I talk more about that in this video. I previously did have a frame chop, so I didn't have to cut any more of the frame, but I did have to do a few other little modifications. So let's talk about some benefits of this bumper. Like I said, it is made by 7-slot Customs, which is the Jeep specific line of from Barnes 4-wheel drive, which is a huge company. It's awesome that they're coming out with all these new bumpers. But this is a frame chop bumper that allows a recessed winch. Usually that's pretty uncommon. The winches sit on top like my old bumper did, just because there's not too much real estate to work with. I am running one of the biggest winches, the Xeon series, which has a huge head up here. So I did have to make a few modifications to the grill back there to allow my huge winch to get in there. And you'll see that later on in this video. But if you're running a standard winch, it'll fit in there no issue. If you don't want to make any modifications to your grill, you can get relocation brackets or relocation packs for your solenoid from your winch manufacturer. This bumper also does allow you to run fog lights or little pods in here, but to do that, it does require you to cut the frame even further back than I already had. For me, that wasn't a big deal. I'm not, I really don't need a fog light inside there. I think in the future, I'm gonna drill a hole right here and have a nice little Baja Designs LED light up there. I really like those looks, but we'll do that later. This bumper, like I said, has a lot to it. It has the dimple die cutouts to reduce, any of that extra weight. This is a pretty light bumper. It's about 10-15 pounds lighter than my old bumper. I think this is sitting around 35 to 40 pounds, but I'll have to get with them to double check because it's not on their website. But as you'll see here, it has a nice little neat cutout on the side of the bumper. What this does is allow your tire more room to come up and articulate once you're running bigger tires, because when your tire's up here and you're flexing, this is some prime real estate for normal issues for rubbing. So they did a smart little cutout here, but still had the tube bumper run out here for any side impacts you might have. But overall, I really think this looks great on the JK. I'm super stoked about it. So that's enough talking about the bumper. I could go on and on about things I really like about it and the benefits of it, and I'll keep talking about that throughout the video when I'm installing it. In this video, there's a lot of tips and tricks on, really to get the most use out of this bumper. I did have to cut my stock grill in order to push the bumper as far back as I could. which gave me a better approach angle. But there are some tips and tricks in there about cutting your grill if that's the route you want to go. It's not bad. I made a very simple and dumb mistake, so hopefully you can learn from that. But if you cut it, you know, learning from my mistakes, you really won't even notice. It gives you a nice clean finish, and it really sucks the winch all the way up into the grill, and it's pretty cool. So let's go ahead and start on this install video, guys. Hope you enjoy it. If you have any questions, go down to the comments, let me know, and I'll be more than happy to answer any questions you have about this bumper or the install. This is the 7 Slot Customs Pritchett Canyon Series front bumper in the frame chop. So the frame chop version is a little bit different than the standard version. It is going to require a little more work to put on. We are going to have to cut the frame, but it offers a lot of things that a standard bolt-on bumper doesn't. It's going to have a lot more approach angle, and I'll show you guys all this stuff once it's on the Jeep. But this one, compared to the standard version, is shorter. It's in line with the grill, so you can run bigger tires, have more articulation, more room. It offers a nice little winch hoop up here. You can mount your fair lead right here. Let's go ahead and throw this down, slide it back. As you can tell, it has a recessed winch plate. We'll talk a little bit about that later on why I like that. Of course, your little shackle mounts for your shackles, and it does come raw. I went ahead and primed it and painted it with some nice little Rust-Oleum hammered texture paint. I think that looks pretty sweet. So let's go ahead and rip the old bumper off, get this one on, and the install shouldn't be too hard because I already have a frame chop bumper. But I'm gonna show you what a frame chop looks like without the bumper on the Jeep. And I mean, they include instructions with this, guys. It's not hard at all to put on. Might sound a little intimidating, but we are gonna go through it and get this bumper on. I'm really stoked about it, so let's do it. So here we have it. My old bumper is off the Jeep, and we can take a look at what an accomplished frame chop actually looks like. So I wish I had a Jeep right here beside me to show you guys what it looks like. But if you've ever messed around with bumpers on a Jeep, you've noticed that the frame extends probably out here another 3 inches, and there's a big plate here. So they call those the frame horns, and that's where the factory bumpers mount to. And there's also a crash bar that runs from here all the way across. So on the factory stock, you know, plastic bumpers, you need that sideways, you know, lateral support and, you know, extra crash protection because it's just a cheap plastic bumper. But now that we're going to be adding a heavy-duty steel bumper that goes across it, that's almost going to act as, you know, the crash barrier. You're really not going to need much more frame reinforcement because we're bolting on a huge beefy, you know, plate of steel pretty much. The factory frame horns, come a little side angle, usually extend to about here. So by chopping those off and mounting the bumper closer in, we're going to have a bumper that's tucked in closer than, you know, that would normally allow, opposed to a, you know, a simple bolt-on bumper that's going to come all the way out here. So with the frame chop, it's going to suck it in closer, which is going to be a lot better for off-roading. And honestly, I think it looks so much better, especially from the side profile. You don't have a huge bumper sticking all the way out. So my Motobuilt frame chop, I cut off, I really don't remember exactly how much. You know, it came with the instructions. You cut it, drill the holes up here, and bolt the bumper on. The Barnes kit actually comes with a template. Let me grab that real quick. Right here. So this is the template showing you where you're going to cut and drill your holes. That way there's really no guessing. But one thing I will mention is that the Barnes bumper is actually designed for a winch and fog lights in there. Now, one thing, if you do want to run the fogs, you are going to have to cut your frame more than I did here. So we're going to test fit. We're going to see if I want to do that or just leave out the fog lights completely and leave a little more of the frame. And you'll see what I'm talking about once I throw the bumper on. But let me show you guys how these little templates work. They are simply going to go right here behind the frame mount. Put it right there. Line this up. And this line where my index finger is where you would cut, and these 2 holes are where you're gonna drill. So as you can tell, it is more aggressive of a frame chop than what I currently have, but the good thing is you don't actually have to cut it all the way back here unless you want to run the fog lights. So like I said, we'll talk about that here in a minute. But let's go ahead and test fit this, this bumper, see how it looks. And you know, I really wish I had you know, my frame still so I could show you guys how to do a frame chop, but it's really not bad. You can grab a Sawzall or a grinder, cut those frame horns back, and I always like to say it's better to cut, you know, not enough and work your way down than cut too much off, because, you know, the only way of extending it more would be to weld it on. So you're gonna cut the frame horns off, cut the crash bar off, and get your grinder and make everything nice and smooth. It's really not bad, and it's really not even like cutting your frame. It's just like, you know, trimming your fingernails. It's totally unneeded on a Jeep. But let's throw the bumper on and see how it looks. So as you can tell, the bumper is just, you know, sitting there on the frame, and I really like this look. It's really minimalistic. It doesn't distract too much from the front end of the Jeep, and honestly, it's gonna look amazing with a winch sitting up in there. So with the recessed winch, as you can tell, there's the mounting holes. This does clear the factory electronic sway bar. One thing I will say is you can't run the sway bar flip kit for you Rubicon owners. I had a flip, but I had to take it off because of this winch plate down there. It hit, so I need to put it back to normal. Winches. Let's talk about winches. I'm actually running the Warn Xeon 10S, which is a huge winch. On barn sight, and I guess I should say 7-slot custom sight. Either one, it's on both of them. They actually did mention that with the bigger winches like the Warn Xeon 10, it's not going to fit with the top head, because those Xeons actually come up and then back out, and it's going to hit the grill. So a few options here. I can either relocate the solenoid pack that sits on top, like remove it and buy the kit to, you know, relocate that solenoid pack. I can do that, or I can do a nice little simple trim on the grill here and make it look nice and clean, or I can simply pull the bumper out a little bit. That's the great thing about frame chops, is because since it's not directly bolt on, I can position this bumper in and out as far as I want and as much as I can where my winch is going to go. So it's definitely a versatile bumper system, which is awesome. So if you don't want to cut too much of your frame, you could simply pull the bumper out some, drill your holes through on the side. You can pretty much mount it wherever you want. You don't have to use the template that they gave you. But my next step is going to be able to mock this up with the winch on it. So I'm going to take my winch off, remove that, throw it on the new bumper, and see how everything fits. All right, so before we start drilling holes and everything and mounting this bumper, I'm gonna test fit the winch. Since I have the Xeon, it is big, it is gonna take up a lot of room. I really wanna test fit it and see what we're dealing with here before I choose if I'm gonna cut the grill or move the bumper out some or relocate the pack. If you have like a standard winch, you know, one that doesn't have a huge solenoid head, you know, like a Smitty build or even some of the other Warn series, it will fit in there with no modifications needed, but I would still recommend test fitting it. So bumper is sitting here nice and move in some, nice and secure right there. Let's go grab the winch and drop it in. All right, so I finally got the winch mounted in there. You know, just a few bolts holding it in, but as you can tell, it is a nice snug fit in there. Not too much extra room, but this is one of the biggest winches on the market, you know, in real estate size. So we got it on, and as you can tell, the bumper is actually supposed to line up this hole with that hole. So what we're hitting on is this winch solenoid pack right here on the grill. What I think I'm gonna do is trim the area of the grill behind here so we can snug it all the way up in the grill. I really do like the look of these the Xeons, so I'm gonna keep it like this. I am gonna cut the grill. Now, an option for those of you that want to run the Xeon, don't want to relocate the solenoid pack, and don't want to cut the grill, you could simply mount it like it is right here. So if you leave a little overhang for your frame, you know, don't cut as much as they did in the instructions. My frame ends right about here, and the bolting holes, as you can tell, one right here and one there, which is about here. So if you leave your frame a little bit longer, like I said, you know, you can kind of customize this bumper. You could simply drill your holes as it is here and not have to worry about anything. So for those of you that want to cut the grill, I'll try to make this section short, but it's really easy. All you're gonna do is scoot the lower part of the winch to the back and pretty much see where it's gonna need to be cut. Go a little bit outside it, make them dot. Do the same on this side. Rotate the winch up, push it all the way in, and make a few dots on the outside as well as that side, and then look at it from a horizontal angle and make sure it will clear up top. I'm gonna cut a little bit on the lower side to see how far back in we can go with it and make the grill, you know, perfectly touching the winch here, so it's a really clean look. So I just realized there's really no reason to take the grill off to make this cut. I grabbed my Dremel and we're just gonna go nice and slow, make a nice clean cut if I can. You know, take our time, do a nice clean cut, test fit it, and go from there. I'm gonna cut on the inside of my markings and open it up bigger as needed. I'd rather not cut too big of a gap, you know, and leave a nasty exposed gap. So let's do it. So, real quick tip, something I just noticed, I am gonna have a gap here where it curves in. Because I cut it straight across, it actually concaves in. So what I should have done was brought this curve down some and looped back up. But if you do mess up, you can go get some of that automotive trim that goes along the edge and, you know, that self-sticky stuff, and it's gonna cover, you know, you can pretty much set that to cover any gaps if you mess up. But I do need to chop this left side a little bit more. So the grill is trimmed. You wouldn't even be able to notice, especially if you did it correctly. I'm gonna show you guys a tip and something not to do, because on mine, I'm gonna have to fill it in with some of that door edge trim, just because I made a little oopsie and I didn't really think about it. But from the front, it looks beautiful. The only place I messed up was that loop right here. So let's imagine it on this one. When I made the cut straight across, it actually went deeper in to these little concave loops, and that's why it cut in there and you have that little gap. It's not even the size of a finger, but you know, from up here you can see it. The good thing is the automotive door trim will fill that up perfectly and you won't even know the cuts there. But if you are gonna trim your grill, when you go straight across, come down and don't cut into these loops. Don't do it on a straight plane like this. Do it, you're gonna kind of have to come in an angle and take off less in there. But if you did that, honestly, you wouldn't even see where you had to trim the grill, especially once we come over here and clean it up. But if you, you know, avoid making the mistake I did, you wouldn't even see it, and this bumper is gonna sit nice and tight. It looks like it just belongs there. So tomorrow we're gonna grab our 1/2-inch drill bits, drill the holes, drill our mounting holes, and mount this bumper up, and you know, put it all together and see how it looks in the daytime. Real quick, here's a visualization of what I was talking about. If you're gonna trim your grill the correct way, you're gonna cut up here, come down where this Sharpie mark is, not level. You're gonna wanna come down, hug the bottom of this, then come up and cut down. So, oh, it's sunny out again. Awesome. It is time to get this bumper installed and finished up. I'm like falling more in love with it now that I'm seeing it in the daylight. But it is time to actually mount it to the frame. So we're gonna need a 1/2-inch drill bit, and we're gonna drill through the frame to make those holes and mount it with the included bolts they gave us. But one thing I mentioned earlier, talking about this this little template they provide, you know, where you make the frame cut and drill the holes. You don't have to use this if you don't want. This is like a nice tool to make the install easier, but the main thing I like about this bumper is how you can position it in and out as far as you want, you know, and drill it yourself. So I'm not gonna use the template. I have the bumper mocked up where I want it. Let's see if I can bring this down. On the bumper, on the top, there's a hole here, and that's where the hole in the frame already is. So I just stuck a bolt right in there to hold the bumper in place, because this is where I want to mount it. So we're gonna come over to the side, get our 1/2-inch drill bit, and drill holes through the frame. This is where the bumper is going to mount to the frame. Like I talked about, here's that bolt where I am aligning it to. I'm going to push it as deep in as I can go, and line it up with that hole right there on the edge. Just using that bolt there to hold it in. And since I'm not using the template, I'm going to use my little punch here to mark where we'll be drilling the holes. Now that those are marked, I'm going to do the exact same thing on the other side, making sure the bumper is nice and even, and then we're going to go through and drill them out. Go ahead and hit these holes where we drilled with a little layer of primer just to prevent any rust from happening in the future. All right, it's time to throw the bumper back on and do a nice little test fit. Now that we have the holes drilled and everything's good to go, it's all lining up, we're gonna grab these plates, and these are what are gonna go on the other side of the frame. And your bolts are going to go through here, and this is just so the bolt pressure isn't against the frame. You don't want to crumple the frame, so this is going to distribute that load. And pretty simple, you're just going to snake it in there, put it over the bolts, and then secure the nuts down. So we're going to do that with both of these sides. And I still have to attach my fair lead mount, my Factor 55 ultra hook, and throw the shackles on the front. So we are almost done installing this bumper. All we have to do now is get these plates, put them on the inside of the frame where we put our bolts through, and snug the bolts and nuts down with a 19mm wrench and socket. You don't want to go too tight, just nice and snug. I'd probably say anywhere between 30 and 40 foot-pounds of torque will be plenty to hold this bumper. So we're gonna finish this up, back it up out of the driveway, and check it out. Boom. All right, guys, so this video is coming to an end, and once again, I really can't get over how well this bumper looks on the Jeep. I'm really glad I went with that, because now I have a set of matching, I have the Pritchett Canyon series front bumper, rock rails, and rear bumper, and they all look and fit amazing. Overall, I definitely couldn't ask for anything else. The bumper pretty much has it all. It's the frame chop. It has the recessed winch to allow the better airflow. It has the recovery mounts. Honestly, it just looks amazing. So that's it for this video, guys. If you have any questions, go down in the comments, let me know. Please give the video a big old thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And stay tuned for the next video. We are doing a Rugged Radios giveaway. Pretty stoked about that. But until then, guys, keep on Jeeping on. Peace.